Holy moly. 10-6 one night, 5 in extra innings the next night. What did the afternoon game have in store? Blue Jays, Guardians, Blue Jays game recap. My name is Scott McGregor. Let's have a fun wrap up of this Guardians Blue Jays series. It starts now.
The Blue Jays are back, and right now, with the game having gone final, we are welcoming you in to Blue Jays Game Recap on the Sports for Beginners podcast. Now, let's go to your hosts of Blue Jays Game Recap, Thomas McGregor, Ali Musa, and Scott McGregor in the Sports for Beginners podcast studio. Take it away, gentlemen, because when the umpire says, "You're out," or "That's the game," or "Let's play ball," we know it's time for some baseball. This is Blue Jays Game Recap. Take it away, gentlemen.
Blue Jays 6, Guardians 0. Well, we've had an extra inning game. We had a game go a full 9 innings with both teams on the board, and now we get a game with only the Blue Jays getting runs. Good evening, everybody. Welcome in to the finale of Blue Jays game recap, the finale of the Guardians Blue Jays series. If you could have tell earlier on in our recording, before I covered it up with my sweater, I was wearing a Buffalo Bills shirt. That's because earlier today, when we were recording our Friday program, that will drop around this time as well as our Guardians recording that we are doing right now, we had Ryan Talbot in the studio, and we wish Ryan luck in his race that he was telling me about after we went off the air. Speaking of Ryan Talbot, we will leave a link in the description of our episode for the 18th episode of season 4, as well as a link in the episode description of this show for you to, if you are a Blue Jays fan but also a Buffalo Bills fan like myself, we will have a link in the description for you to join the Bills Insider text group. One of the ways you can do that is by texting 716-528-6727. There is also a link, but we will leave that in the description of the episode for you to log on to. It is a 2-week free trial, and then $3.99 a month shortly after the free trial, which again is a 2-week free trial. And for all the Bills fans listening to this post-game show, probably joining us from my conversation with Ryan earlier in the day today, of course, both of these shows are dropping on Friday, June the 27th, 2025. One of them is a baseball game that played out today, Thursday, June 26th, 2025. The other is our weekly program. But if you want to get in on all the action with Ryan and Matt directly, become a Bills Insider. Once again, the number to text is 716-528-6727. All right. Enough gab. Let's get to the baseball game, managed by Stephen Vogt and John Schneider. Those are our managers. This afternoon's ball game at Progressive Field featured starters in number 34, Kevin Gausman, who would go for the Toronto Blue Jays. And meanwhile, he would be countered by Tanner Beebe. We'll go with Tanner B. That is a quick look at our meeting on the mound. Records for both clubs heading in to game number 3. This is their record through 2 games of this series. The Guardians, who won in walk-off fashion last night, improved their record to 40-38. The Blue Jays lost that game in extra innings last night in 10 innings and had their record move down to 42-37. Since then, the records, as we sit here heading into the Red Sox series for the Blue Jays this weekend, starting on Friday, which is tomorrow, and the Guardians' next series will touch on that in a moment, what their next series is, but we know it's not Toronto because Toronto just played them 3 games in a row, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. All right, so more on the upcoming schedule for Toronto and Cleveland later on, but that is a continuation of a homestand for Cleveland. So that is an ongoing homestand for the Cleveland Guardians right now. Records for the pitchers before we get into the ball game itself and line score before we take our first break of the show. Kevin Gausman came into the game with a record of 5-6. His record with the win improves to 6-6. An ERA coming out of the ball game with Tanner B had a record of 4-7 coming into this game. Had the Guardians won this game, his record would have improved to 5-7, excuse me. But they lost this game, and his record is therefore at 4-8. ERA coming out of the game for Tanner is 3.80. All right, let's get to the line score before we go off topic anymore. And here we go. For the Blue Jays, 6 runs on 6 hits, no errors. For the Guardians, no runs on 2 hits, 4 errors. They left 5 men on base, stole 2 bases, and totaled 3 men on base. The Blue Jays, same amount of bases as per hits and runs, 6 runs on 6 hits, 6 total bases. They stole 1 base in today's game this afternoon and left 4 men on base. Nobody was able to hit a home run in today's game for the Guardians or the Blue Jays. Alrighty, we will jump into some interesting news regarding Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Jose Ramirez, who had to leave the game in a tense series finale. But when we return after our first commercial break of the show, we will talk all things scoring, and on one of those errors, maybe on both errors, maybe on a couple errors, I shall say, we had scoring happen. Error happened to be where scoring happened in the top of the third, where 2 runs were scored right off the jump, another run added later, and then no scoring till the 9th inning. We will talk about that, bring you the top performer of the game and the player of the game following the scoring summary, and then we'll take a look around the MLB and take a look at the score at the pitching line for game number 3. Later on in our program, we will take you to who's next for Cleveland, who's next for Toronto, and where the standings currently stand. So don't go anywhere. Blue Jays game recap has just begun, and we get to the scoring part of the show next.
CNT Radio will never give you up. They will never let you down, nor will they run around or desert you. So join Nick Astley for The Melting Pot every Saturday on CNT Radio. Hang on a minute. He's not Nick Astley. Oh, jings, I've done it wrong. Anyway, just join Nick for The Melting Pot on CNT Radio.
Take another look with Gerda Felix and Melanie Taddeo Malo, two powerful women of diverse backgrounds having genuine, unique, and uncomfortable conversations that everyone needs to have. Join Melanie and Gerda for conversations about what is missing from human connections.
I wonder if I could make it. It's almost getting to 8 o'clock p.m., and I am still a few more steps away from home to get to my computer to listen to CNT Radio's Cosmopolitan Culture Club. The best of the best music from around the world. Can't wait. I think I made it. CNT Radio, making your day brighter, one song at a time.
All right, off we go on Blue Jays game recap. We welcome everyone back. My name is Scott McGregor. Off we go to the scoring of this final game of the series, which was a tense series finale. Both teams, each in the fourth and third inning, received warnings for hitting, quote unquote, hitting Vladimir Guerrero Jr. He was hit in the third inning of this game. And later on in the fourth inning, we had Jose Ramirez in the bottom of the fourth. He would be plunked in the fourth inning. Both teams' pitchers at the time would receive warnings. So these happened in the third inning and in the fourth inning. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. started the game at first base, but in the fourth inning he was replaced by Davis Schneider, who would play second base. Ernie Clement went from shortstop to first base. Andres Jimenez going from second base to shortstop. Jose Ramirez was the first batter in the bottom of the fourth, by the way, and he was hit by a pitch right out of the chute. He would later be replaced by Nolan Jones. So Nolan Jones has been in this series, as has Davis Schneider. All right, anyways, let's go to scoring. Key moments included the action happening in the third inning. Where do we start in the third inning? Well, Nathan Lukes scores. Jonathan Clase and Tyler Heineman also brings Miles Straw to third base on the play. The Blue Jays open up with the lead 3-0. Well, 2-0 on the Nathan Lukes single. On an error by a missed catch from Kyle Manzardo and a throwing error by him, the Blue Jays score on the play. Miles Straw. It had to be Miles Straw because, first of all, he was the only man at third base at this time. So Miles Straw will indeed score on the play. I don't exactly have whether or not he did score, but given he was the only man on third base at the time, he scores on that error. Oh, that was also during Nathan Lukes' at bat. So the Blue Jays played it 3 runs on just one single. On a throwing error by Kyle Manzardo, Miles Straw would come in to score. So it would be a 3-run single by Nathan Lukes in the top of the third inning. All right, let's go back to scoring. And now we fast forward 9th inning of play, and it's Alejandro Kirk with a 3-run single to score Addison Barger. Ernie Clement and Jonathan Clase, they score on this play, and there is a throwing error by left fielder Steven Kwan. Steven Kwan with the throwing error in left field. All 3 Blue Jays, Addison Barger, Ernie Clement, and Jonathan Clase score on the play. The Blue Jays were up 6-2 6-0. The Blue Jays were up 6-0 at this time in the ninth inning. And who should come to the closing moment but Chad Green? So Kevin Gausman had a pretty good day. But so did Tanner. Okay, yes, Gausman went a little bit longer than Tanner did. But anytime, if you're a Blue Jays fan, anytime you can get 8 innings out of your starter, I'd say that's a win-win. All right. So there you have it. That's how the game went 6-0 in favor of the Toronto Blue Jays. Let's jump to the top performers of the game, and we'll start with our player of the game. Before we get down to me selecting that will happen later. Kevin Gausman was our player of the game for this game, going 8 innings pitched, 6 strikeouts, no earned runs allowed. He gave up 2 hits, but again, he K'd 6 Guardians. A top performer was also his opponent in Tanner B, who went 6 innings, gave up 3 hits, 2 earned runs, and fanned 7 Blue Jays. Speaking of Blue Jays, the other top performer in today's game was Miles Straw, 2 for 3 with a run scored and a stolen base. And to bout, that was the only stolen base of the game for Toronto. 2 stolen bases by the Guardians. You know, there's an old saying in sports, you can't win if you can't score. But at least the Guardians were not no-hit in this series. I mean, first of all, as a Blue Jays fan, it would have been really sweet to see Kevin Gausman get through a game without giving up a run and a single hit or 2. He did not, but it is what it is, and that's baseball sometimes. So Kevin Gausman had a chance to flirt with history, but 2 hits allowed. Both came during his outing, and that is why he was not no-hit, or he did not have a no-hitter at the end of this game. But I guess you could say the Blue Jays had a pretty good game. Johnny of Gate 14, shout out to you, my buddy, in Gate 14. Listen, was this a dog walk by the Blue Jays over the Guardians? Absolutely. But could it have been? Well, it could be an understatement. But I'm not going to badmouth Johnny or anybody who covers the Blue Jays. Hey, if you're joining us from Sportsnet 590 The Fan, odds are you were listening to Jays Talk before you came on to our show, and maybe you haven't checked out our episode yet with Ryan Talbot. Please go check that out. A link will be in the description later. A link to an earlier conversation with Ryan a while ago is also going to be provided before the show hits the air. This show hits the air. So with that being said, we've gone over the top performers of this baseball game. We talked about the scoring. We've gone over the line score. We met with the managers, met with the pitchers starting in the opening portion of our show. Let's go ahead. Let's close in a little bit closer to my thoughts on both batters on Cleveland and Toronto, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Jose Ramirez, each getting hit by a pitch. Let me just say this. I'm going to absolutely commend the umpires for issuing a warning to both Toronto and Cleveland. It's never a good thing when a player like an all-star player like Vladdy or Jose Ramirez gets hurt or hit by a pitch. But you know, there's also an old saying in baseball, you hit me, I'll hit you. I don't know who came up with that saying, but anyways, 1 inning after Vladimir Guerrero Jr. was hit by a pitch on his right forearm. That's exactly where it was. Jose Ramirez, the Guardians' first baseman, experienced the same fate in the 4th inning of Thursday afternoon's series finale, I should say, between Toronto and Cleveland. Both superstars were forced to exit the rubber match of the 3-game series, which was a 6-0 Blue Jays win, with right forearm contusions and underwent x-rays which came back negative. Blue Jays manager John Schneider and starter Kevin Gausman both said that Ramirez hit by a pitch wasn't intentional, though Guardians manager Stephen Vogt went out behind home plate between the fourth and fifth innings and had some words for Toronto's dugout. He was corralled by home plate umpire Tom Hannon, and what we got in quote was, we knew they were gonna hit Hosey. Vogt said, "We knew it was coming, which is part of the game. I played in this game a long time, been around this game a long time. If you're gonna hit somebody on purpose, hit them in the hip, not the arm." So, just to clarify, both Jose Ramirez and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. exited the ball game. Vladdy exited in the fourth, but was hit by a pitch in the third. Jose Ramirez exited the ball game after the fourth inning, in which he was plunked in. With one out in the top of the third inning, Guardian starter Tanner B hit Guerrero with a 95.6 mile per hour sinker. It was a 2-2 offering that got Guerrero on the underside of his right forearm, and he immediately dropped his bat before spending a moment staring at Tanner B. He walked to first base with Schneider and members of the Blue Jays training staff. It also marked the second straight day that Guerrero had been hit by a Guardians pitcher, I should say. Jacob Junis hit him in the back with a 91.7 miles per hour sinker in the eighth inning on Wednesday during a 4-4 tie that Cleveland went on to win 5-4 in 10 innings. John Schneider said on the matter, "I know they're not trying to throw at Vlad. We're not trying to throw at Hosey. Just kind of one of those things where you're trying to make a pitch. I thought everyone handled it fine." All right. Schneider also said on Vladimir Guerrero Jr., "You never want to see that with any player, let alone Vlad. So you just want to be as careful as you can, especially since he's still a little sore from yesterday. No one likes it, but I'm glad that we avoided anything bad." After the game, Tanner said he did not intentionally hit Guerrero, saying, quote, "He's one of the best hitters in the big leagues. I was trying to throw a sinker in just like Jacob Genus was yesterday. It just ran in. You make $500 million. You're not going to be able to lean over the plate. It just is what it is. I wasn't trying to hit him. You have to pitch guys like that inside," Stephen Vogt said. "Every now and then, one's going to get away. We're clearly not trying to hit anybody. We don't do that." All right. Ramirez, by the way, was hit by a pitch in the bottom of the fourth. It was the first pitch Gausman threw to him on a 95 mile per hour four-seam fastball on the inner half of the plate. So I don't know if I agree with the term "it wasn't intentional," but we will see how both teams react going into their next series. Do I see Vladimir Guerrero Jr. playing in the Boston Red Sox series? Yes, I do. But do I see him playing on the first night? Probably not. Maybe he'll play in one of the weekend games. Which reminds me, now we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, a look around the MLB ongoing games and current finals. Plus, we'll take a look at where the standings are in the American League East and where the Cleveland Guardians are. We'll also take a look at the American Wild Card as well. And then after a 30-second timeout, for a word from our good friends over at Sienna T Radio, we will be getting on into previewing the upcoming matchup for the Blue Jays and the Red Sox, at which time we will tell you who the probables are, who is covering that series, if and when it may appear on our podcast. I will not be in the host chair for that show, for those shows, but you'll find out also when I will be back in the studio. So the probables for the Red Sox coming up after the 30-second timeout. But after this break, it is time to talk all things MLB around the league. The Blue Jays beat the Guardians 6-0. They improved their record to 43-37. The Guardians' record is 40 and 39. I almost said 49-39. If it was that way, the Tigers would have been taken over. And we'll talk about the Tigers during the MLB look around, standings watch, MLB scoreboard, the upcoming schedule, and the probables for Red Sox Jays next. And coming up in a break time, this is Blue Jays game recap, and we will be back with you in a moment.
Looking for conversations on the world of broadcasting, sports media, and from time to time, my favorite sports teams? Listen to Broadcast Map with me, Ali Musa. To learn more about the show and to view the upcoming schedule, like the Broadcast Map Facebook page. Search Broadcast Map.
Hey everyone, it's your host Scott McGregor of Sports for Beginners, the podcast. Wanting to remind you to join us for another special holiday double trouble on Sports for Beginners as the New York Yankees come north of the border to take on the Toronto Blue Jays. Join us for a special Sports for Beginners Season 4 episode / a original Blue Jays game recap. That's right, we got the Yankees and the Blue Jays series recap on Sports for Beginners, part of Season 4. Plus, the Los Angeles Angels will be in town. Join me and perhaps Thomas, who may join me in studio, for double the Blue Jays game recap. One, part of Season 4 of Sports for Beginners. The other, traditional Blue Jays game recap. Both following the Canada Day extravaganza 4-game series between the New York Yankees and the Toronto Blue Jays. And of course, the 3-game series weekend between the Los Angeles Angels and the Toronto Blue Jays. Happy Canada Day to all listening to this recording at this time. We'll see you after Canada Day for some Double Trouble Canada Day the following day after Canada Day and after the homestand. Until then, lights up, let's go. Looking for a good hockey podcast that covers your favorite hockey teams and mine? Check out On the Ice and Behind the Benches, where we chat about our favorite hockey teams from puck drop to the last play of the action. To learn more, follow the On the Ice and Behind the Benches Facebook page. Search On the Ice and Behind the Benches. Looking for a sports podcast that covers sports weekly as well as gets you set up for the day? Check out Weekly in Sports with me, Scott McGregor. We give some shout-outs of the week to podcasts like this one and those who do them. Discuss the Blue Jays, Bills, Raptors, and more. To learn more, check out the Sports for Beginners Facebook page. Search Sports for Beginners. We welcome everyone back into the program here on Blue Jays Game Recap. I am Scott McGregor, your host of the show. Blue Jays Guardians 0. Going to take a break from talking Guardians and Blue Jays for a moment, because it's time to talk about elsewhere around the league. This will lead into some standings watch in a little bit. But let's quickly go ahead and take a look at our games from around the league. Here are a couple of the early finals, including some of the afternoon games, including Blue Jays and Guardians. We got a lot of games actually that are final right now. The Houston Astros defeated the Philadelphia Phillies this afternoon 2-1. The Tampa Bay Rays get closer to the New York Yankees. They win 4-0 over the Kansas City Royals. The Chicago Cubs beat the St. Louis Cardinals 3-0. The Miami Marlins trounce the San Francisco Giants 12-5. And besides our game, the only other game gone final is the Tigers and the Athletics. The Tigers defeat the Athletics 8-0. And this just in, the Twins and the Mariners have gone final. Twins knocking off the Mariners 10-1. Only one game right now underway. That's in the fourth inning. No score between the Braves and the Mets in that game going on right now. The New York Yankees were idle tonight, so they do not play today. Their record sits right where it is. And right now, let's take a look at let's first of all take a look at the AL East division. Right now, the Tampa Bay Rays are 46-35. The New York Yankees are 46-34. The Toronto Blue Jays are 43-37, taking 2 out of 3 against the Guardians today. The Boston Red Sox are 40-42, excuse me. The Baltimore Orioles, bottom of the pack, they are 34-46 right now. By the way, they are also a team not play. Did the Orioles play today? No, the Orioles did not play, and neither did the Texas Rangers. So a couple of teams that did not play today ended their series that they were currently in last night. When we look at the Guardians division, the Detroit Tigers are 51-31. The Cleveland Guardians, with the 2 out of 3 loss series to the Toronto Blue Jays, are 40-39. The Minnesota Twins are 38-42. The Kansas City Royals are 38-43. Minnesota is 38-42. And the Chicago White Sox are 26-55. They will take on San Francisco next, who is just coming off of a series with the Miami Marlins. All right, so let's take a look at the American League wildcard. For the moment, the Yankees are the AL East leaders. The Houston Astros are the American League West leaders. And the Detroit Tigers are the American League Central leaders. Records of 51-31 for Detroit, 48-33 for Houston, and 46-34 for New York. In the wild card, the Tampa Bay Rays are 4 games up in the first wild card spot at 46-35. The Toronto Blue Jays are 43-37 in the second wildcard spot, 1.5 games up in that second wildcard spot. Seattle is 41-38. They are in the third wildcard spot. The Cleveland Guardians are a game out of the wildcard spot, sitting at 40-39. The Los Angeles Angels are 40-40 and 1.5 games out. I should say about half a game out of the wild card spot. Texas is 2 games out of the wild card spot, sitting at a record of 40-41. The Red Sox are 40-42, 2.5 games out of the wild card. Minnesota is 3.5 games out of the wild card. They are at 38-42. Kansas City, 4 games out of the wild card. They are at 38-43. Baltimore at 34-46. 7.5 games out of the wild card. 33-50 are the Athletics. They are 10 games out of the wild card spot. And the Chicago White Sox are 26-55. and they are 16 games out of the wild card spot right now. So a lot has to go right for those teams I just mentioned down at the bottom of the barrel in the wild card. Okay, they are heading to the bottom of the fourth in the Atlanta Braves and New York Mets game. So we'll wait to see how that game finals as of today. But once again, the final scores, including our game, the Tigers knock off the Athletics 8-0. The Twins knock off the Mariners 10-1. The Dodgers beat the Rockies 3-1. Cubs take down the Cardinals 3-0. Astros defeat the Phillies 2-1. Marlins trouts the Giants 12-5. And the Rays beat the Royals 4-0. And of course, for the Blue Jays, they beat the Guardians 6-0. Alrighty, since we have a little bit of time, let's take a look at the upcoming schedule for the Cleveland Guardians leading up to the All-Star break. Well, they are currently on a homestand that had 3 games against the Blue Jays, including Bark in the Park on Tuesday night, Educators Appreciation Night on Wednesday night. Friday night, they will have a free Shirt Friday giveaway going down when the Cardinals come to town. And then it's Cleveland Buckeyes Cap Day on Saturday when the series continues with the Cardinals. It wraps up with a fun day for the kids and a nice, interesting start time there at 12:05 on Sunday, p.m. Eastern. That'll wrap up a 6-game homestand for the Guardians that is currently going on. They will go to the Cubs for 3 games beginning on Canada Day after the weekend set with the St. Louis Cardinals beginning on Friday, which is tomorrow. Head back home for 3 on the weekend against the Tigers, including a free Shirt Friday, a bobblehead giveaway. They are giving away a Larry Doby bobblehead, and it's City Connect Hawaiian Shirt Day when the Tigers are here in Cleveland at Progressive Field on July the 6th. The Astros will host the Guardians for 3, and then the White Sox will host the Guardians for 4, which will head us into the All-Star break. To recap, Guardians take on the Cardinals to wrap up a current 6-game homestand to end the month of June. They will take on the Cubs to start the month of July, head home for a weekend series with the Tigers, and then they go on a 7-game road trip where they will take on the Astros in a 3-game series starting on Monday, July the 7th, Wednesday, July the 9th, Thursday, July the 10th, until Sunday, July the 13th. The White Sox will be hosting the Guardians at Wright Field. By the way, not that we bring up any of this news on our podcast, but a White Sox fan for being disrespectful to Arizona Diamondback player Ketel Marte had been banned, according to the White Sox, by the MLB for all ballparks. So he had been banned indefinitely from all major league ballparks. I don't know the fan's name, and I also won't go any further on this, but I will say that it occurred during the Arizona Diamondbacks series with the White Sox. With that being said, when we return, heading into the All-Star break, who's next for the Blue Jays? What are the probables for their next series? How did they go into the All-Star break? Who's got the coverage of the next road trip series on Blue Jays Game Recap? Can it be heard also on Sports for Beginners? And when will I be back with more Blue Jays Game Recap? You find out all those answers in 30 seconds. Stay with us after a word from our friends at Sienna T Radio, making your day brighter one song at a time.
Sienna T Radio will never give you up. They will never let you down. Nor will they run around or desert you. So join Nick Astley for The Melting Pot every Saturday on Sienna T Radio. Hang on a minute. He's not Nick Astley. Oh, Jings, I've done it wrong. Anyway, just join Nick for The Melting Pot on Sienna T Radio.
Guardians 0, Blue Jays 6. Blue Jays take the series 2-0. They improved their record from 42-36. The Guardians, meanwhile, improved their record to 40-39. So the Guardians got to 40 wins. They now have 39 losses. The Blue Jays have 43 wins and only 37 losses. They take 2 out of 3. So now we turn the page to the Boston Red Sox. That's right. It's the AL East from here on out. Well, they wrapped up their series today with the Guardians. They will begin a 3-game series with the Boston Red Sox. Details on those Blue Jays game recaps in a little bit. I'm back for a Canada Day Double Trouble special happening ahead of the White Sox series in Chicago. The Blue Jays will open up a 7-game homestand, their last homestand of the first half of the season, where they will take on the Bronx Bombers in the New York Yankees starting on June the 30th, 2025, going through the Canada Day long weekend, including Canada Day on July 1st, 2025, with the exception of it being on a Tuesday, which is every Tuesday home game at nighttime, that is. It will be a Looney Dogs night at the ballpark, but because it falls on Canada Day and it's a holiday, there is an exception. We'll talk more about Looney Dogs night over the course of Trouble for our Canada Day Double Trouble on Sports for Beginners. It'll be a episode of season 4 for one of the recaps of this homestand between the Yankees and, of course, the Blue Jays. And then, of course, we will have an original Blue Jays game recap for the series with the Angels, which is from the 4th to the 6th. All those shows dropping at the latest on Tuesday ahead of Game 2 of the White Sox series, and at the earliest, if we can, ahead of first pitch between the White Sox and the Blue Jays. That'll be a 3-game series with an afternoon getaway game on July the 9th at 2 p.m. Eastern. Night Owl games galore before we get to the Home Run Derby and the All-Star game in itself. Join me over the course of the weekend to break down each game in its fullest, the way we went off with the Guardians for this series. We may just do it the way we've been doing it all season long before we try to go game by game, which is working out. It's working out. But some of the games, especially the Night Owl games that the Athletics have coming up against the Jays, where it's 10:05 p.m. Eastern time starts. So I think we'll do a series show with that following the afternoon game to send us to the All-Star break. And speaking of the All-Star break, episodes of Season 4 of Sports for Beginners will be going on a hiatus until the week after the Yankees and the Giants are in Toronto. When the Blue Jays are in Detroit for a 4-game series, we will return with Season 4 content. So you can expect a new episode of Sports for Beginners after the All-Star break on July the 2025. So no episode on Friday, July the 11th. No episode on Friday, July the 18th, as those are pretty close to the Home Run Derby and the Midsummer Classic as well. Will you get an episode of the show on that actually will be the episode that drops on the Monday, because it will be part of a Double Trouble Canada Day holiday edition. We will do the Yankees and the Angels, both of those dropping at the latest on Tuesday, July the 2025, or at the earliest on Monday, July the 17th, July the 7th, not 17th, July the 7th, ahead of the opening game of the series with the White Sox. Okay, Guardian series done. Blue Jays are 43-37. Guardians are 40-39. It's the AL East, the rest of the way for the Blue Jays heading into the All-Star break, including showdowns with the Boston Red Sox, the New York Yankees, the Los Angeles Angels, White Sox, and Athletics. As for me, that will be our Canada Day Yankees versus Blue Jays special game recap. And then we will have the Angels and the Blue Jays in a traditional Blue Jays game recap, part of our double dose on Monday, July the 7th, 2025, or at least at the latest, it will probably drop on Tuesday, July 8th, 2025. Either way, both shows will be dropping during the White Sox series. And maybe if we can get them out as early as we can, they'll drop before first pitch of game 1. So you can catch me then. Thomas will have you covered for the Red Sox and the Blue Jays, which is up next. And here are your probables before we say goodbye. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, here we go. Who is pitching in Red Sox versus Blue Jays? Who is it gonna be? Here we go. Who's it gonna be? The Blue Jays will start that series with Jose Barrios. Jose Barrios is getting the start on Friday night. He will go against who the Red Sox will be countering with. They will be countering with Brian Bello. Brian Bello is probable. That could change. That could change. Saturday. Who's got the nod Saturday? It will be the Hound on the mound, Chris Bassett, versus for the Boston Red Sox. They will counter with, who are they countering with? As a probable pitcher, they will counter with Lucas Giolito. So Lucas Giolito against Chris Bassett on Saturday. Barrios versus Bello on Friday, which is tomorrow. Or tonight, when you might be tuning into this. You might be tuning into this on a Friday, maybe on Saturday. And last but certainly not least, Red Sox finale, Sunday, June the 20th. Who do we got? Woo! I like this showdown. Eric Lahr is going to go for the Blue Jays against Walker Burley. Walker Burley is going to go for the Red Sox. He will go in Sunday's matchup. Eric Lahr going for the Blue Jays in that matchup. The records for the pitchers probable. Eric Lahr is Walker Burley is 5-5. In game 2, Lucas Giolito is 3-1. Chris Bassett is, and in game 1, Jose Barrios is 3-3 going into this game. Brian Bello is 3-2 going into this game. Those are the records going in. Will they stay that way? Nope. You can bet they won't. But if the game goes into extras, or let's say a pitcher who is starting the game leaves with the game in a tie at any given point, that record might stay the same. And that is going to do it, ladies and gentlemen, for our coverage of Blue Jays baseball. Blue Jays beat the Guardians 10-6. They lost in extra innings 5-4 on Wednesday night. That was last night. And tonight, as of the recording of this post-game recap, they defeat the Guardians 6-0 when the Blue Jays show up against the Red Sox on Friday. It will be the 43-37 Blue Jays versus the 40-42 Red Sox. Thank you guys so much for being with us. Really appreciate you taking the time to check us out whenever you may be doing it, whether it's the day the show drops, the day it doesn't drop, or a couple days after. It doesn't matter, because as I've mentioned over the course of the show and over the course of many of the shows that we've done, it is so important to keep up to date, but it's also important to make sure that even if we just cover the series and don't cover it game by game, you tune in, if you're a Blue Jays fan, to Blue Jays Talk after every baseball game, during the weekends with Show Ali and whoever his guests may be, and during the week with Kevin Barker and Jeff Blair, unless one of them is either on vacation or needs someone to fill in. As for this show, my name is Scott McGregor. That'll do it for this episode of the program. Thank you so much for being with us. and we look forward to catching up with you again real soon. I'll see you at our Canada Day Double Trouble Extravaganza. Yankees, Blue Jays, followed by Angels, Blue Jays. That's on deck for the Canada Day special, and I hope you will tune in. With that said, as always, Blue Jays fans, lights up, let's go. Blue Jays. Have a great rest of your evening if you're catching this in the evening. The great thing about baseball, you get to do it all over again tomorrow. So as the great Mike Wilner would say, even though I won't be joining you tomorrow, good night from Progressive Field. We will see you next time.
Thank you so much for joining us on Sports for Beginners, the podcast, for Blue Jays game recap, the after show on Sports for Beginners, the podcast, right after every Blue Jays game. To learn more about upcoming episodes, when they drop, and schedule, please visit https://sportsforbeginners0.wordpress.com. Follow the show on Facebook at facebook.com/sportsforbeginners87. Send us an email at sportsforbeginners87@gmail.com. Follow Ali, Thomas, and Scott on Twitter at Scott McGregor 3, Thomas J, and ALI Musa. Follow Thomas and Scott on Instagram at SMC_87_ and TM_80 and TM00_. Thanks for listening to Blue Jays Baseball, and we hope to see you soon again. This has been Blue Jays Game Recap. Once again, the website is https://sportsforbeginners0.wordpress.com. Thanks for listening. And when it's time for the Blue Jays to play ball, there's only one chant Blue Jays fans will be using. Catch you later, baseball fans.